Well, that kind of dovetails with bug bounties and maybe involuntary bug bounties, as China's laws are now structured such that if you discover a vulnerability, you're required to report it. I know our former colleague, Kristen Del Rosso, had done a lot of research on this and published a paper. And I saw her speak last year at CyberWarCon on this topic, kind of trying to analyze what impact the Chinese government's policy shift may have had on the threat landscape, especially of zero-day exploits discovered in China. And we paid a bug bounty for, we believe, to one of the people behind these attacks through our bug bounty program. That was a little controversial to some people on X, I believe, after we published the report. I think you engaged with some folks on social media that were sort of criticizing or questioning, at least, whether that was such a great idea. That's a complicated topic, right? Because, I mean, obviously, if you have to report all 0 days to the government, presumably the main reason you would do that isn't for tracking purposes, because I think the NVD was doing just fine with tracking vulnerabilities when we report them. There's obviously motive behind that. And then, but I don't think any of us really expected those to then end up in our bug bounty program. So, like, what evidence do we have to tie those things together? And I think I'm with you that it is the right thing. Anybody that reports a bug to us that helps us secure our products, regardless of motive, is a good thing for us to, and it's our word that we promise that people that submit things within our guidelines will be rewarded. What's your take?
So there are a few points to address there. One is it's difficult to know the time sequence of how these things occurred, whether it was an independent threat actor who found the vulnerability and then figured out how to exploit it, and then they reported it through a bounty program, and then they subsequently reported it to their local government agency that is expecting or rewarding disclosure for this sort of thing. So you don't know exactly the sequence in which it occurred. So that's number one. Number two, the kind of controversy that surrounded our disclosure about the fact that we paid a bounty to the researcher slash threat actor who was behind this elements of this campaign. It's understandable that it would be regarded as controversial because there's just not a lot of precedent for this sort of thing. The reason why I think it's important is that number one, I think everybody who produces software that has any kind of a critical role in a modern digital economy probably should have a bug bounty. The bug bounty program that we've been running for coming up on, I think it's about 9 years now, has been one of the best ways for us to find and resolve vulnerabilities and weaknesses within our product of all the various kinds of mechanisms that we use for that. The reason why I think this is fairly uncontroversial, in my head at least, is because when you provide a generous bounty for the disclosure of a novel kind of a vulnerability, it becomes very, very tempting for threat actors to want to double dip. And what I think we saw here was an instance of that. It effectively becomes a financial honeypot where it's too difficult for them to resist the $20,000 bounty, $50,000 bounty, whatever might be associated with it. And even if they're doing their patriotic duty for their country to provide these kinds of vulnerability discoveries and exploit developments so that they can be weaponized, they of course don't see themselves as the bad guy, they see themselves as the good guy. But it makes it very, very difficult for the researcher, especially if it's a college student, as is often the case, to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the chance of claiming this $20,000 bounty, even if I might get caught on the other side for doing it. I think it's a very useful tactic.
Yeah, I was thinking back to proxy login and the alternative. If you want to get paid the bounty, you have to kind of abide by the terms of the program, which often gives the vendor enough time to get a fix out. Now, maybe it had already been exploited as a 0 day against targets, which sucks.
Yep.
But the truth is it hadn't been widely targeted against tens of thousands of people where it could cause much more harm. And in order to get the bounty, you're going to have to give us the time to prevent that outcome. And that's a really good outcome for our customers and for ourselves, as opposed to like proxy login, which looked like it had been used in targeted attacks by the Chinese before it was made public. And then in an effort to maybe cover the tracks and muddy the water, it was mass exploited and web shells were everywhere on Exchange servers. And it was a terrible, terrible outcome. And we, more than 2 years later, our MDR team is still responding to proxy logon incidents against our customer base. So I think paying the bounty, not only for all the things you said, also can help prevent these really widespread negative outcomes by everybody kind of agreeing to the terms of the game. Like, I will disclose this privately so I get paid, but that gives us time to help prepare the world to be better protected against that new threat. So not sure
If you think of it, it's a small price to pay because number one, you're buying information. Number two, you're buying time, and both of those are precious. And if you apply a $50,000 or even $100,000 price tag to that, and it results in 48 hours of more time to be able to protect your customers, that's money really well spent.